Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Waleed Bazzaz, and I'm from Kuwaiti Institute for Scientific Research at the Petroleum Research Center. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the unconventional EOR and my experiment and the technical avenues, and hopefully we can share some ideas with you and tell you about our roadmaps and what kind of innovation and technology needed in the EOR. In the beginning, we're going to start with objectives and then going to portray some strategic platforms. Then we'll talk about the market and where it is heading and how the fundamentals are changing it. And the new technology, I have a new technology that can help EOR. One of them is the dry heat technology, what we call it Haddad, or the hot dry air diffusion. The second is the low salinity water flooding. And third is the understanding the wettability phenomena in the EOR studies, and some future solution innovation and avenues that we can suggest for you. So our motto is the more oil, the better we like it. So the objective for any EOR R&D program is to advance the stimulation, advance reservoir characterization, and advance the drilling technology, because these are driving the efficiency and the production improvement in our business at the EOR. So basically, we want to have increased the knowledge and awareness of the new game-changing information that is giving increasing difficulty in our unconventional technology and our changing economics that makes the production difficult economically and environmentally and all these kind of avenues. So the strategic platforms, we have the conventional EORs that is mainly maintaining the the crude oil viscosity and also increase the crude oil permeability. So together they are improving the mobility of the crude oil and also improve the reservoir wettability. And we like to see it more water wet, so that can help displacing the oil outside the reservoir into the pipeline and the production wells. And also we're gonna have EOR processes, the conventional, which is chemical EORs, thermal EORs, and gas injection EORs. Monitoring and information system of our technology, that's always going to be there. Logistics and distribution, and consumer markets, the supply and demand. This is basically our challenges and the conventional EOR. Now, we're gonna suggest some unconventional EOR technology because there is a lot of improvement in the nanomaterials. So we need to come up with a new purpose engineered chemicals with nano and with other materials, with polymers and so forth. Also, if you inject it, then you trace it. So we're gonna have to invest a lot in our tracer, because everything we inject in the reservoir, we have to trace it and see if it is working, not working, hitting the targets and so forth. So tracer programs, we're gonna see a lot in the current and future EOR programs. And also we're gonna have to work on the energy efficiency, part of the economical equations. Also to have a integrated digital transformation. This will help us maintain a lot of our efficiencies and regarding the reservoir characterization and others. We want to have the information faster. We want to have it robust. We want to have it cheap and all these kind of things. So we need to invest a lot in the digital transformation. Also, we need for the future EOR and unconventional, we want an unconventional human factor and the project teams. The human factor, in the old days, we needed petroleum engineering. Right now, we need a hybrid of petroleum engineer and maybe some other engineering and economics and computer engineering, IT, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. So the petroleum engineer by itself is not going to be equipped enough for the future EOR. So we need to invest a lot in the human factor. Also robotics to minimize the error that the humans can make, and also to help our automation and faster production. Artificial intelligence solutions is going to be very important in the future of the EOR operations. Production of EOR crude oil transfer markets. Sometimes we invest a lot of money in heating up the reservoir and enhance oil, the reservoir. But as it gets to the surface and to the journey that's going to go to the client, it cools off and it's solidified, and that could serve a lot of problems. So what we needed actually is to have a transfer markets in order for the EOR to survive in the future. So EOR market fundamentals are changing. We see that the changes are all opportunities, as a matter of fact. We look forward to see the economics and the demand and the unconventional other trends that's coming. We see in the avenues of the economy, can big oil companies sustain and save, improve their efficiency, capital efficiency? I think all oil companies right now, from the pandemic and from the weak demand, start to have eroding their capital. So 5 years ago, there was a big campaign cutting the cost of the CapEx to 45%. Right now, it's a very irrational target. So we are looking to find other avenues that's cheaper, and in order for the companies can maintain low cost of production. And that's the main targets that it seems that the big oils are slipping away. Cutting costs, CapEx is irrational because there is a lot of heavy technologies, and they all require maintenance and require equipment and new technology and invention and purposely built. So cutting costs in the CapEx, maybe in the operations, yes, in the OpEx, but in the CapEx, it might be an irrational target. We also face more market fundamentals that are changing in the weak demand. We saw that in the pandemic. But the truth of the matter is that whenever we're going to have a weak demand, is going to create an oil storage. So oil storage is the new concept, creating a glut in the supply and hence price volatility. That's going to be a very major challenge for the EOR crude oils. Also adding more salt to injury. There are a lot of unconventional new trains coming to the table. And I have here mentioned 10. As you see in the red colors, they are all gas. So the future is going to be in the gas, the natural gas. So the natural gas is the actual threat to the EOR crude oils. So that can be an opportunity if we know how to balance between the natural gas and the EOR crude oils. We don't want to see the EOR crude oils facing the same future as the coal business industry in the world. But if it keeps going in the same path, it surely is going to catch up. Okay, this is my first technology that I was playing with in the lab. I called it Haddad, or the hot dry air diffusion. It's basically dry heat technology. I get the reservoir and just have heat and extracts the crude oil from the other end. In the lab, you can do so many wonderful games and toys and experiments. But the truth of the matter is to want to push them through in the real lives, in the upscale, the pilot plants, and in the pilot scale, or in the full-fledged scale. Right now, this is just to prove the benefits of this technology. So what is it this technology is all about? As you know that I'm from Kuwait, and Kuwait is a desert country. Water is always precious, and it has always in short supplies. So we want to think about a technology that utilizes no water, basically. So as we know that the steam requires water, and fresh water is the better. Cyclic steam, same deal. Steam assisted gravity drainage SAGD, also the same thing. So our motive was to propose a technique that require or exclude the use or the usage of water, and use heat and only heat to minimize the viscosity reduction of the equation of the mobility. And so when we have the permeability over a lower viscosity, that will improve the mobility as part of our enhanced oil recovery methods. So the economics in the lab scale is beautiful. It can be cheaper than the water, because if you, and I come to this conclusion, if you remove the water from the equation in the EOR, you will have a cheaper technology. So dealing with water and the environment of the chemicals and the media of the solutions that you are going to inject in your reservoir, that's going to add up to the cost. So as if you remove the element of water, things start to become cheaper. In a short comparison between the dry heat and steam, we found that the coal production give us between 1 to 10 recovery ratios. Maybe not economical for heavy oils, but for medium oils, coal production can become useful in the EOR business. The cyclic steam can get us between 15 to 30%, but we are going to have a nightmare dealing with produced water and the produced water issues. The SAGD is 40 to 60%, but we also have to deal a lot with the feedbacks or the flowbacks of the water issues produced. The electrical viscosity reduction, which is basically our technology, the Haddad, is 30 to 60%, and there is no water issues whatsoever. So that becomes very economical benefit. In the in-situ upgrading and conventional, which basically if you continue adding heat, you reach to the condition of a refinery, basically. That was the idea. And you transfer the crude oil into diesel in situ, and you just produce diesel and you sell it and take it to your markets. It can reach in the lab, of course, up to 40 API crude oil. So if you have even a heavy crude oil, I dealt with a 17 and a 15 API crude oils. I managed to get them up to 40 APIs. The problem is you shock your reservoir with intense temperatures. As it cools off, it will become a different matter. So we still haven't figured out how we're going to do when it starts to cool off. So I spent in the lab for this technology to talk about the benefits. We can put heat wherever we want it. It does not increase water cut. It reduces energy losses and the overburden, controllable, high temperature not dependent on pressure, no water to react with the formation, heat input tolerable in the horizontal section, can use renewable energy, possible demand response, all the good stuff. But in our business, we always look at the drawbacks. And the current situation and the current moments right now, the drawbacks is as follows. The electrical heater technology is still immature. the BTU energy equivalent cost is still higher than, let's say, the natural gas, the BTU that natural gas can provide us. Significant electrical generation capacity usually not available, and this factor is varied from a country to a country, to a company to a company, where you have the wattage is different from a company to a company, a region to region, country to country. So that cannot be standardized still. Most petroleum engineers are not familiar with the electrical engineering, products, designs, and options. Actually, if you want to go after this technology, you need electrical engineers. They can give you a lot of benefits and cut corners in the energy consumption and the efficiency of the equipments that you are going to use. So we move on to the next subject, which is the new technology of the low salinity water flooding. Some people call it LS water. What it does is we are dealing with the molecular level of what's happening between the reservoir and the fluids there and the fluids that we are going to inject. So we can go and deal with fine migration. This is going to help us design better materials or additives to that water, let's say nanomaterials. Also the saponifications and the ion exchange, the mineral dissolutions. All this is at a molecular level, I would say at the angstrom to the nano up to the micrometer level of physics that we need to understand. So it is an enhanced oil recovery method that uses water with a low concentration of dissolved salts as the flooding medium. But today, the natural sources of these low salinity are rivers, lakes, or aquifers. So even this is not a very attractive choice in the Middle East, in the middle of the desert. However, it depends on your definition of a low salinity. If you deal with a reservoir, aquifer, or effluent water with the crude oil, seawater can be a low sal. Anything with a less salinity, brackish water can be a low sal. You can design, you can mix, you can filter. So there is, so it's the boundary of this definition is not defined yet. So how does it work? There are many mechanisms. Unfortunately, we don't know which one is more dominant than the other. Fine migrations, that's by Tangamoro, saponification, reduction of the interfacial tension, multi-component ion exchange, double layer expansion, mineral dissolution, desorption of organic material from the clay surface, and the electrostatic attraction, reduction between oil and clay's edges. All these good stuff, we don't really know how it's interact by themselves and with each other. However, they all have the same end result, which is altering the wettability and lowering it and making it more toward the water wet, which that's what we like it in the EOR. Some companies around the world, they call it low sal, others call it design water, some call it smart water, others call it advanced ion management, others call it ion tune water. The truth to the matter, they are all the low sal technology. It was observed in a high oil recovery than many other techniques. And it is very simple. It's just water and you add it to your reservoir. It is low salinity and it will increase your recovery. The technology has been there for 15 years. The low salinity water flooding is environmentally friendly or friendlier than other techniques, and it's a cost-effective method. The only challenge, or the true challenge, is this the availability of this medium, of this low sal medium. So it can unlock up to 30%, or it gives you, in my lab, I managed to get close to 27% more recovery than other techniques. And there are many factors remain unrecovered in the oil reservoir, such as the energy depletion, the heterogeneity of the residual oil, the high viscosity of the crude oil, if there is a fracture, oil-wet reservoirs. So what this technology is bringing everybody is it can adapt all other EOR techniques to the table, which makes it very interesting in designing purposely built injection water for recovering EOR crude oils. We can amalgamate it with chemical, thermal, and gas injection techniques. We found that it is a low cost and it can increase the oil recovery. And this is with my students. We found out that we could have increased the recovery in a substantial, like 27% recovery in the lab. Low salinity water flooding differ from normal water flooding in the ionic composition. So in the essence of this water, it can react with the fluids themselves and with the reservoir minerals to increase the recovery in the form of wettability alteration. Right now we are comparing, and we have what we call recipes for the smart water, and the recipes are endless. Here we have 7, and we have just a plain low salinity water. We injected toward the end of actually secondary recovery program, and we have a WAG, and then low salinity water, and then we have low salinity, and then alternating with the surfactant, and we have foam, and followed by LS, alkaline LS water, then foam, surfactant, water, polymer. The idea here is order. The sequence is important. Which one comes before the other in order to maximize the wettability alteration. We have a wettability alteration up to 40%, which is a good news for us in the EOR. We also found out that the polymer, we inject polymer and then we inject, following the LS water, is far much displacing and increase the efficiency much better. There are, as I said, endless recipes that we can do. The order of these injection is what makes it higher recovery. So if you want to maximize your EOR, you better pay attention on the sequence of which treatment comes before what. Toward the end, I would like to explain also the last and the third, the last phenomena, which is the wettability phenomena in the EOR study. A lot of people don't give it a lot of thought, but wettability is a complex phenomenon. For it is too difficult to yield accurate measurements and control of a quantitative repeatability or a short time of experiment that we don't have the patience for or the money to go after. So captured rock physics is important, and deterministically reported as a big morphological, and that's my approach, is through imaging rather than the conventional technique. Digital technology gives us a new physics, so we need to explore the new physics of wettability. And hopefully I can do this in 2 or 3 slides. These study objectives are to accurately measure wettability. The conventional wisdom right now only deals with 1D wettability. I did a lot of experimentation in the 2D. The ultimate goal or target is the 3D. And to be fair, I found out that the 2D is far more information discovery than the 1D or the 3D. We are trying to understand the the wettability in the pore geometries. And my case here was a heavy oil silty sandstone. It is important also to know that the contact angle is poorly understood and not measured in a conventional labs. A lot of labs gives you a lot of numbers, but there are no standardization. So basically, we like to refer to the wettability phenomena as the fat elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. It's always there, but they are treated as it's invisible and nobody wants to talk about it. So they usually go by empirical formula, partial models, derived equation, theory from the literature that's far from the real condition of your reservoirs. And what I did basically is to have a new classification that I could capture it significantly and very clearly. And I will try to make it into 6. I found 9, but I can summarize it into 6, which is a strongly water wet, SWW, medium water wet, and medium oil wet, and strongly oil wet. Wettability in real reservoir rocks is a condition value estimate rather than a single value. So most of the conventional wisdom will give you a value of the wettability as a single value. To me, wettability is like a porosity. It's like saturation. It's a distribution. It's not a single value. And we need to understand that. It's part of the new physics. Introduce wettability contact angle, the mirror effect, because we are dealing with 2D. We managed to measure from 0 to 360 degrees angles, contact angles. So we refer to it as a mirror effect. We're going to discuss it. And all reservoirs have their signature 9 contact angle classification, but different proportion. And that's what makes each reservoir unique and different than the next door reservoir, the next door neighbor reservoirs. So as you see here in the top sketch, this is the 1D, the conventional conceptual models that everybody has studied, which we have an oil wet system, water wet system. The contact angle, if it is above 90 degrees, that's an oil wet. Less than 90 degrees, that's water wet. Unfortunately, this does not happen inside the reservoir. This is only on smooth surfaces that is not talking to your reservoir. It's far from your reservoir. The reservoir wettability is complex. That's why it's part of the being a big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, is the conceptual is actually pretty old. We need a new physics. We need new models. We need to go in that avenues. So let's say we have here a silty sandstone. We have clays, we have silt, we have sand. Here in the first model, we only have one, the whole reservoir are represented by one mineral, either sandstone quartz or carbonate calcite or dolomite, like that. True to the matter, the reservoir is more complex. So we have more minerals affecting to your wettability and contributing. So if we transform this to this picture here, so this only one pore, we found there is about 11 different mineral grain walls, and they are all contributing to the wettability. So the wettability in this pore space is actually a collective effort between 11 minerals, plus your water, plus your gas, plus your crude oil, and plus your chemicals that you want to inject. So I think it's time now to move to a more realistic models or conceptual models. So here, what we found is, thanks to the digital technology, we found all kind of pores. So if we have one pore that has 11 surfaces, and if we have, let's say in this image, 10,000 pores, amazing. So the distribution. So right now we could measure in the lab the amount of pores and their wettability in a big data format, that's also what we like it for modeling. So what we found that there is between 1 to 6, there is a strong water wet, SWW, and that's from 0 to 30 degrees. The medium from 30 to 60. The weak water is 60 to 90. The weak oil wet is 90 to 120. The medium oil wet is 120 to 125. And the strong oil wet is 6. And then we have a mirror here, and that duplicate the angles in the other matter. So what we found this in this classification, each EOR treatment can be successful in one of these regions. So let's have here, if this is the 0 and this is 180, from 0 to 30, this blue here, SWW, this is actually strong water wet, which means that's your primary recovery. So 30 to 60 is the medium water wet, and basically that's where your window of operation of your secondary recovery, which is water flooding, regular water flooding. The weak water wet is where the surfactant is going and working. And after the 90, we start to introduce the temperature, and we're going to talk about it. Here we have this mirror. So this is where we think from 0 to 30 and from 300 to 30 to 360, this is the primary recovery. So now we can tell you that your reservoir, by the way, all reservoirs have the same distributions, but with different frequency and availability. Some reservoirs have more 0 to 30 than others, and so forth. So from this analysis here, we found out that what is your maximum theoretical limits that EOR can work. In my study, I gave only 6, which is the 0 to 30. There are reasons I excluded, and that's what we need to have a future. We need chemicals to improve the wettability that works for the 0 degrees, something that we could not even measure in the lab before, and the 90 and the 180. So here, what we learn that the cold EOR is from 0 to the 90. After 90 degrees, there are pores in your systems needed temperature. So if you have thinking of thermal treatments, think about what is your target. Are you going to lock this oil or that oil or this oil? Because these oils can be recovered without even introducing any temperature. But how much? And by the way, as we go here, we are increasing. So we should expect that the secondary recovery is more expensive than the primary recovery, and the surfactants more than the secondary, and until we get to this region here, that's the most expensive oil to get out. We found out that primary recovery is 0 to 30, secondary 30 to 60, chemical flooding with low heat, all right, low sal, smart water with heat between 100 to 300. This is the 120 to 150 degrees angles, contact angles, unconventional treatments, high temperature, and so forth. What we found out are that all reservoirs have mixed wettability, which is like that, all reservoirs. So, but the differentiation between each pore classes and their degrees varies from a reservoir to a reservoir. In this case study, we found that the primary is about 12%. That's the maximum recovery. And the secondary is only 14%, adding to the primary. The low salinity can improve it to about 19%. Chemical flooding can give us 25, but at what cost? Smart water, 17, and the unconventional treatment is 11. So the last slide I have for you today is to give you a roadmap about the solution that you need to do in your EOR, which is there are solutions that needs a spotting, and these are have the tendency to have 7 times more success, like the hot air, the Haddad, but again, that's in the lab. Smart waters, nanofluids, heat management, acid treatment, surfactant treatments, water separation, and all these good stuff that can go with the smart water, low sal. Digital transformation, new chemicals, all this is a solution that needs spotting right now. Mental invention, it has 3 times more failure, but if it works really nice. This kind of actually solution requires money, which is not a good solution in today's economy. This is the fluid composition. We found out that carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, oxygen is very important mix that's gonna be unlocking the EOR crude oils. The NSO, it has heaviness and it will resist getting out to the surface, while what we need is carbon and hydrogen, which is the hydrocarbon. So we need to understand more the compositions. And the second is the economy. Each EOR should have an energy loss, energy gain equation thrown into the development of this EOR techniques. Need spotting, which is have 2 times as many success as failure, but it's doable. Is the artificial intelligence solution, new platforms, iClouds that can speed up decision-making. Scaling up, we need also to address it for EOR projects. The project life cycle, what we found that EOR cycle is usually, it takes longer time, it needs to be shortened. I believe 2.5 years should be the maximum cycle of that project. So if there is any complication, it needs to be reduced and handled and attended to it quickly and shorten the project life cycle, because aborting a life cycle can happen at any minute in the EOR project. Random events, crude oil transfer. I was thinking that instead of having the tankers, which takes longer time to reach to the market, maybe we can propose transferring the crude oil, the EOR crude oils, by air freight. In situ upgrading, we can get diesel for you, syngas, gases from the crude oil, without having to get it to the surface and deal with it and take it to the refinery and transport it. Maybe that can also have a good return on us, and also the nanoparticle materials. With that, I'll be very happy to answer any question. I hope I didn't take too much of your time. Thank you for listening.